Welcome everyone. We are gathered here today to celebrate the life and to honour the memory of Darrell Bishop. It is the death of a husband, father, brother, pop, uncle and friend that has brought us together, but his life that we wish to remember. Today is also a day for memories. Today will be remembered for many reasons, but mainly I hope it will be remembered by you all. A day in which you share time with others in order to pay your last respects, and to say both mentally and physically a sad but fond farewell to a man whom we were all very privileged to have known. I offer my deepest condolences to Lee, his children Megan and Stephen, Emma and James, Michael and April, and Daryl's adored grandchildren, Braden and Emily, Marcus, Zoe, Oliver, Cooper, Noah and Ellie, and his brother Gary and sister-in-law Leslie. And I am very honoured to be asked to officiate here today. On behalf of Daryl's family, thank you all for taking the time to be here. For some unable to travel but watching the live stream, and for all the love, support, flowers, visits and phone calls they have received since his passing. Following the service here, please join the family in the adjoining lounge for a cuppa and to share some more stories, some that may be a bit too wild to be said in here. I first met the Bishop family when Fred passed in 2016. Daryl was actually in hospital a few rooms away from Fred. It wasn't the usual type of funeral arrangement that I've done. We made so much noise and laughing, the nursing staff came to check what was going on. Since then, I have seen Lee and Daryl arriving for appointments at the health centre. Even when he was obviously having a rough time, he would always tell a yarn and have me in fits. And he would tell me how amazing Lee was looking after him, which we can all agree with. She is one in a million. So if I fumble today, please forgive me. Megan and Emma have chosen the following. That Man Was a Success by Robert Louis Stevenson. That man was a success, who lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and women and the love of children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his tasks, who leaves the world better than he found it, who never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best he had. Darrell's family would like to acknowledge and thank the following who have assisted Darrell over the years while he has been unwell. Dr. Suren Naika from the East Devonport Medical Centre, Dr. Raj, Dr. Moore, the community nurses, and Dr. Cynthia, the nursing staff at the Burnie Hospital Intensive Care Unit, and nursing staff at the Mersey Community Hospital. Darrell was born on the 7th of September 1947, the first child for Mavis and Fred Bishop. 4 years later, Darrell's brother Gary was born and completed the family. Fred worked as a builder and Maeve as a chef. They lived in River Road, Port Sorrel. Living so close to the bush of Muddy Creek, Darrell and Gary spent their childhood fishing at the jetty, riding their bikes and trying to stay out of mischief. Gary recalls the day Darrell acquired an old bathtub and thought he would take Gary for a sail in it down Muddy Creek. Off they went, rowing across the water, when unfortunately for them, the plug came flying out. Lucky they were not in the channel and were able to swim to safety. Darrell made a bike track for himself and Gary to race each other, just over the bank from their house. Gary also recalls the day when Darrell came off his bike and sliced his leg open on the pedal, one of the many times he injured himself. Darrell and Gary attended Wesleyvale Area School, where Darrell spent a fair amount of time in the principal's office and on the receiving end of a cane. Despite this, he still went on to become bus monitor and prefect. One day, Darrell's class was out in a paddock at school, ready to plant potatoes after the ground had been turned over. Darrell kicked his foot over the soil, not knowing there was a tiger snake buried underneath. The snake bit him on his lower leg. Darrell didn't know he'd been bitten, but after about 5 minutes he began to feel ill, and when they realised what had happened, one of the teachers threw him in the back of the car and drove him to the Latrobe, where he spent 3 days in hospital recovering. Overall, Darrell and Gary had a wonderful childhood, and Darrell was still in contact with many of his friends he went to school with all those years ago, including Graham Brown, or Brownie, who visited Darrell every week without fail. They met in kindergarten. Darrell was a mate for life. Darrell joined the Army Reserves in 1965. He found out that even if you were not 21, the then legal drinking age, and in the reserves, you were allowed to drink in the army bar, which was quite convenient for him. Darrell decided to follow in his father's footsteps and became a builder carpenter. He got an apprenticeship with Wilkins, Gray and Dowling and spent his first year in the joinery shop. He then went on to build lots of houses at Pardo Downs. Darrell's good mate Jeff Smith recalls that Darrell had built so many houses that he could have done it with his eyes shut. He could do anything from framing, fitting out and pitching a roof. In the 60s, Darrell went to Melbourne with Jeff to visit a mate who was living there. They decided that they should keep on going up to Sydney, as neither of them had been there before. Daryl knew another mate, Kevin Brown's two sisters, Kay and Diane, who lived in Sydney, so they could visit them at the same time. While there, Daryl noticed in the paper that builders were screaming out for carpenters. Daryl said to Jeff he was going to come back up to Sydney and get a job. He and Kevin Brown moved to Sydney, then on to Townsville, spending around 2 years working. On their return to Tassie, not a lot of building work was happening. Jeff recalls they were over at the Edgewater having a drink when the bartender said they were looking for someone to work behind the bar. Well, Daryl thought it was the perfect job for him. Jeff and Gary said they would put their money on the bar, Dad would take it, pour them a drink, and then give them the same amount back. They drank a lot of free beer. Luckily for the Edgewater, the building game picked back up. So Daryl left his career as a dodgy barman and went back to building. Daryl met Lee at the East Devonport Bowls Club in 1969. Lee noticed Daryl when he walked in, but he went and sat next to another woman, so Lee thought he was taken. A few moments later, Daryl walked over and tapped Lee on the shoulder, introducing himself. At the end of the night, Daryl offered to drive Lee back to the nurse's home where she lived at the time. Lee recalls she started to feel uneasy as Daryl drove her out towards Latrobe, past a heap of bushland, before pulling up at the Latrobe nurse's home. She had to then tell him that she lived at the Devonport nurse's home. And she was relieved that he wasn't a serial killer. They married in 1972 in Burnie and set up house at College Court in Devonport. They bought a block of land in Greenway Avenue, and Daryl built the house that they still live in today. In 1976, their first child, Megan, was born, followed by Emma in 1981 and Michael in 1984. Life was good. Weekends were spent socialising with friends, having barbecues, going on holidays and day trips around Tassie. Still working in the construction industry, Daryl worked away a lot, only coming home on the weekends. Many buildings around Tassie that he worked on were the Silver Dome, McCain's factory in Smithton, the Zinc Works at Hobart, and Trioxide in Burnie, along with countless residential houses all around the state. Daryl adored his 7 grandchildren and spoiled them whenever he got the chance. He always enjoyed their visits and catching up with what was going on in their lives. When Braden and Marcus were younger and Daryl's health was better, he was able to get out and about with them, go fishing or go to watch them play sport. He would call Zoe most nights after his favourite show, Home and Away, had been on, to debrief with her about the dangers of living in Summer Bay. He may have regretted telling Oliver, Cooper and Noah that he would pay them $5 per goal at soccer. It ended up to be a small fortune over the years, but he always paid up. Little Ellie adored her Poppy and spent lots of time sitting on his knee while he would read her books. Even though over the last 6 years, Daryl battled with his health and a lot of their time was taken up with doctor's appointments, Lee and Daryl still found time to have a fulfilling and happy life with their family. He met every battle head on, but sadly this time it was too high of a mountain for him to climb. He will be missed very much by everyone who knew him, but his family and friends have wonderful memories they will cherish forever. I'd like to now call on Daryl's children, Megan, Emma and Michael, and grandsons, Braden and Marcus, to share some memories.
My dad was the kindest, most loving comedian I have ever met. He didn't care much for money. You can't take it with you, he used to say. He spoiled us with love, and our childhood was wonderful. He always made everything an adventure. Money doesn't make you rich, Meg. Family does. And look how rich we are. We have everything. We've always been a close family. It's just the way we are. We all mean well to each other. And the loss of our hero has proved to be very difficult. When I was in grade 3, I had a no-go for a teacher. And Mrs. Murphy, it wasn't you. You were my favourite. Her mission every day was to yell and scare as many kids as she could. At this time, my dad happened to be working at my school building new terrapins. I would go to his side office at recess, and then I'd go back at lunch, and he would imitate and mock her as he would hear her all day, and we would make up names for her. And I would go back to class, and it would get me through the afternoon thinking of all the funny things that we had said. Dad always backed us, no matter what. So when I went for my P plates, this was no different. We set off for the test and everything was going well. I came down a one-way street and the instructor told me, go into the right-hand lane, and then he told me to turn left. And I thought this was a bit strange, but I did what he told me. He then told me to turn my indicator off and turn right. When we got back to the shed, he failed me. Why? Dad said from the back seat. He said, you were going to turn left from the right-hand lane. Well, Dad said, that was your mistake. You were the one telling me what to do. I started to sink a little bit in the seat. Don't worry about it, me. This guy obviously can't drive. As we drove home, I thought, I really don't get that. I hope I don't get that same fella next week. We turned up next week, same fella. I did one lap of the block and he gave me my licence. We got back in a car and Dad said, what a dickhead. He passed the first time. Not long after I came up the driveway as Dad was closing the roller door. He leapt out of the lane, did a big commando roll across the back lawn. Sitting in the car, I thought, that was a bit of an overreaction. And I hopped out and Dad was brushing the grass off his knees and he said, wow, you are talented. Confused, I said, what do you mean? He said, you're the only person I know that can go into third gear when they come up the driveway. As you all know, 15 years ago, Dad lost his leg. We called a family meeting and discussed how we had to pump Dad full of positivity, as this may be a negative time for him. We all arrived at the rehab ward in Burnie and walked into Dad's room. Here he was, sitting on the bed reading the paper. G'day guys, he said, as we walked in. Check this out. He lifted his half leg off the bed and started wiggling the stump. It looks like a racehorse, he said. looking a bit stunned. We were all just staring at him. And he said, "Don't worry, it is what it is. At least I'll be able to walk now. I'm getting a new leg tomorrow." He then went on to tell us that he had a deal going with a nurse up there. I go down to the canteen and I get her Annecy drinks. And she brings me in a beer and a stout of an evening. Of course he had that deal. As we left the hospital, we realised that the opposite had happened. Dad had filled us with positivity, and if Dad was okay, we were too. Just recently, we went on a trip to Hobart to watch Geelong play North Melbourne. Dad loves these trips. He would hire a disabled taxi bus to take us to the game. The positive being that we got dropped straight off at the gate. Then we would head in and sit in the wheelchair bay, another advantage as it wasn't as crammed up. We sat and drank beer and cheered and sang a song at the end because, of course, we won. Not by as much as last week, but we won. This memory will be forever in my heart, as Dad was just so happy to be there. We spent the rest of the weekend shopping, going to the market, eating out and eating ice cream. On the Saturday, Mum and Dad went to Fish Frenzy to catch up with Graham, his former boss and very good friend, and his wife. They had a wonderful afternoon and I'm so pleased that he got to catch up with them. He had such a good time, so good that he couldn't make it out for tea that night. He ordered in room service and retired early. We were so lucky to have you as our dad. With all the battles you faced, you never complained. And we would like to thank our mum for the selfless care she gave to Dad during the difficult years, which she said she wouldn't have had any other way. She was always there for Dad, and we are the people we are today because of their love for each other and their love for us. We really have been blessed. Go Cats.
Growing up, I have memories of Dad being a hard worker who could build or make anything you asked. He loved getting together with his family and friends and having 1 or 2 long necks, playing his guitar and singing. He had an amazing veggie garden. He listened to Slim Dusty all weekend, and he also played indoor cricket. He was also one of the biggest shit stirrers you'd ever met. When Megan and I were kids, all we wanted was a Cabbage Patch doll each. We must have pestered Dad one too many times. As he came into the lounge room one day with 2 cabbages out of the garden, gave one to each of us and said, "There you go, girls. Get to the centre of these and you'll find your Cabbage Patch." Well, we thought, this is the moment. We're about to get our dolls. We ripped the leaves off those cabbages faster than lightning, only to find at the centre there were no dolls and we'd been tricked. I'm not sure if Dad was disappointed at how gullible we were, or rapt that his joke had played out perfectly. Pretty sure it was the latter. Dad worked away a lot when we were young. He would leave super early on a Monday morning and travel to wherever he was working and stay all week. We would wait impatiently on Friday after school for his wagon to turn into the street, and we'd run out to him, all 3 of us, hanging off him as he struggled to get through the door, all probably talking to him at once. He would have been absolutely buggered, but he never stopped us, and he'd spend the whole weekend with us, taking us on picnics or to the park or the pool. Then we'd blink and it would be Sunday night again, and he'd be all packed up ready to go again for the week. It was a huge sacrifice that he made for us, and it made our weekends together more special because of it, which I'm grateful for. When we travelled around the state, Dad would point out all the things he built, which was a lot of things. I tell my kids now all the things he built. when we go away, to the point where they mock me and ask, "Did Pop plant that tree over there, Mum?" And I say, "Yeah, we probably did, little buggers." All of my friends loved Dad. They all thought he was the best, most funny bloke they'd ever met, and they weren't wrong. As a teenager, we'd often hang out at Mum and Dad's place, having a few drinks with them in the backyard. He got on with everyone, no matter what their age. He told the best stories. He didn't always let the truth get in the way of a good story either. This became known as the Darrell Bishop version, which I thought was always more enjoyable to listen to. He spoke his mind. It often came out unfiltered, always inappropriate, funny as hell, and more than likely true. Now, I just want to mention a time a couple of years ago when Dad decided he might give social media a try. Dad signed up to Facebook, and we all held our breath to see how it would play out. I went down to visit Dad to let him know about such things as political correctness, unintentional racist comments, and getting put in Facebook jail if he upset Mark Zuckerberg. I remember him looking at me, taking everything I was saying in, nodding, with the biggest smirk on his face, as if to say, "Yeah, I'll do what I want anyway." And we all knew he would. I have to say, even though there were a couple of close calls, and we had to do a small amount of damage control, he never did get put in Facebook jail. Facebook enabled Dad to get in touch with people he hadn't seen or heard from for years, and that really helped him when he couldn't be as mobile as he would have liked. He wrote everything in capitals, which I told him means you're shouting, and he said, "Oh well, I can't read it otherwise, so stiff shit." Dad loved answering the random questions that are on Facebook. And Megan, Bianca and I would always have a good laugh at some of his answers, and I just want to share a couple here today. First question. I have seen every episode of, and Dad wrote, Bananas in Pyjamas. How old will you be in the year 2050? I think it might be 2030, I'm not sure now. I'll be 104, might get married again. What do you drink first thing in the morning? 10 stubbies. This one's my favourite. Oh, yeah. Name something that runs but doesn't have legs. One of Dad's friends wrote the shits. Dad replied to him, "Good one, Stebo. I had them last Wednesday." and the shit won the race by 10 lengths. Everyone who knew Dad will have their own memories of him, and I hope they make you smile often. We've been so lucky to have this amazing man as our husband, father-in-law and Pop. He was always there for us no matter what, wrong or right, no question. And he'd do anything for his grandkids. He was simply the best, and we're lucky he was ours. And just before I finish, I want to tell my boys, Ollie and Coop, see that room over there through those doors? Well, guess what? Pop built that.
I'll try and get this out if we can. Lost some big names this year. Warnie, Roy, and the Deep. You'll hear people say in life that no one person's bigger than an organisation. Doesn't apply to him. He was the organisation. He was the D-trainer. He was hard working. He was loyal. He was courageous. And he had a sense of humour that only he had, no one else had. But most of all, he was proud. He was proud to be our dad. trotting the dog shit, he'd be proud of me. Didn't matter what you done. And I could swear in this too, there could be an F-bomb. He was proud of his grandkids. He was proud of his wife, our mum. And he was just proud to be our dad. That's all he gives stuff about. I just want to share a couple of stories that my time with Dad that stick with me. When I was about 12, I wanted a boat really bad to go fishing. And Dad couldn't afford a boat, so I said, let's buy one. No. Let's build one. No, okay, bother. Dad looked at me and said, we'll steal one. Yeah, all these blokes are dead out of Port Darrell's boats everywhere. Loaded the boat up, started rowing down the river. Dad's got a little bucket, bailing water out. I said, what are you doing? She said, it's starting to sink. Turn around. So we went back, dropped the boat off. Fishing off the wharf in the Mersey, little jetty outside the Oaksy. We don't just get our lines out. In comes a massive, high-powered yacht-looking thing. Ladies on the deck drinking champagne. Dickhead with a captain's hat. Then look at these blokes coming. We're going to run over our lines. This bloke stands in front of the yacht, throws the rope at Dad and says, tie it up! Dad looked at him, rope fell into the water. The yacht done a circle. This bloke come around again and he goes, when I pass you this rope, you tie it up. Dad looked at him and said, you say fucking please, and I'll tie it. Looked at me. Right over and build a boat. And we did, we went and had many a trip out of Rabbit Island. Another funny time, Dad and I met Steve Wall, Australian Test captain. Dad walked up to him as if he'd known him for 30 years. Steve, Darrell Bishop. I was standing behind Dad like this. They talked for 20 or 30 minutes about Devonport, how great it was, and Steve Wall's greatest innings. I never spoke. When we hopped in the car, Dad looked at me and said, he must have thought he was a fucking retard. We wanted him to coach our high school footy side because no one else wanted to do it. And Dad was just standing there one day and I said, just be our coach or we can't play. Right. We didn't win a game. One day a kid cracked the shits and said, I'm sick of losing, fish. I'll give my brother to play next week. Dad said, what grade's he in? Oh, he's not in a grade. Oh, well, where is he? He gets out of Ashley Boys Home tomorrow. Dad said, I'll pick you up. We picked this kid up that was about 6'4", we're in grade 7. He had a beard. He smelled like arse. He had the toe out of his shoes. And Dad looked at me and said, what have we got here? We won the match by a few points, and it was a great celebration. Dad carried on a little bit. The teacher who organised the footy looked at Daryl at the end of the game and said, what are you thinking, man? You can't have him playing, he's got a beard. Dad said, don't tell anyone. Everything will work out. And it did. Sundays when I was a little kid, about Noah's age or a little bit more, Dad would say to Mum, we've got to go to the tip. He'd put one bag of rubbish in the back of the car, get a big bottle out of the fridge, and we'd drive to the Sheffield tip. So Dad could have about 5 darts and a big bottle. And then on the way home, we'd call into the Alex. Dad would look at me when we walked in and said, don't tell your mother I brought you here. But after 10 raspberries, I had the raspberry slide. When I walked in the door, Mum would go, "Is your dad drunk?" I don't know, I can't tell. One afternoon, Dad took me to Kmart and wanted a footy. And he was complaining he had a bit of a pain in the tummy on the way down. We got into Kmart, we're standing in an aisle. Dad dropped his guts. This woman heard him. "Excuse me." He looked at her and said, "Don't worry, love. If you take deeper breaths, it'll go quicker." The last funny story about Dad that I've got is on behalf of April, when her and the kids had COVID. Noah rang Nan one morning or one afternoon for some KFC. Dad answered the phone. "Yeah, no, what do you want, mate?" "Yeah, can you go down to KFC? You want a couple of go-buttons?" She's in one of them moods, she's cleaning everything. Vacuumed the lounge 3 times. "Leave it with me." This signifies Daryl. Half hour later, his gopher pulls up in the drive at our house. "Beep beep." Out runs Noah. Dad's sitting on the gopher with 2 go buckets. He went through the KFC drive-through. How did it play out? Yeah, ordered at the speaker, paid the kid, got to the last window, manager was standing there. "Excuse me, mate, if you come first again, you're going to have to ban you." In true Daryl style, he looked at the lady and said, "If that's the way you want to be, I'll go to fucking Hungry Jack's next month." Sorry for the F-bombs, but that's Dad. And I'll just close with, it wasn't just my dad, he was my best mate. And he was always there. Whenever you needed him. Rain, hail or shine. I don't know how life goes without him, but we'll work it out. And I love you, mate.
G'day everyone. Mark and I would like to share just a few memories growing up with our pop. Pop meant the world to us growing up. Every chance we got, we would be staying at Pop's house in Greenway Avenue. Here we have fond memories of playing footy with Nick in the backyard, using every tool, bit of timber and nail we could find to build things in Pop's shed. Leaving an absolute mess all the time. Helping Pop in his veggie patch, which always had everything in it. And of course, sitting at Pop's bar watching football or cricket while he drank beer. Every now and then he would let us sneak a shot glass of beer and tell us not to tell your grandmother. Here we were also talked into a Fallen Geelong Football Club in the AFL. When we were little, Pop would pick Marks and I up from primary school. Every now and then, we'd always be sitting in prime position out the front of school in his XF Falcon, with his dog Millie sitting up in the front seat. To get that spot at Sprayton, we'd always have to be at least 45 minutes early, so we were sitting there for ages. When we would jump in, there'd always be chocolate bars sitting in the car for us. We would ask Pop where they were, all he'd do was grin, prompt the Marks and I, just start tearing the Falcon apart looking for him. Another story I always remember with Pop is the first time I got pulled over by the cops. I was about 12 years old at the time. Driving Pop's Falcon up the Moorlands Beach Road towards the old Bolt Hill. When an unmarked cop car swung a U-turn behind me, flicked the party lights on and pulled me over. Now everybody that knew Pop would know that he had a way with people and then just liking him without even trying. After a brief conversation with the copper, told Pop to hold out his hand. Held out his hand, and the copper went smack, and he went, "Naughty Pop, don't do it again." He jumped in his car and he took off. And that was the end of that. Well, I just got through.
When it comes to summertime, our family always went on trips to places such as Greens Beach and Port Surreal. This one trip, we were staying at the shack down Greens Beach and the whole family went down to the beach for the day. All us kids were swimming during the day. Dad went snorkeling off the rocks, but looking for abalone, even though he didn't have a licence. When we were all done for the day, we were packed up and were loading up the cars. When Pop yelled out across the car park, Leslie's dad, who got a bag and put a free abalone. Did you get any abalone? Not realising there was a park ranger walking past our car. The ranger looked at us and laughed and kept on walking. He must have thought Pop was joking, thankfully. We had the best childhood growing up about Pop. He was a legend to us, and he will live forever in our memories. We love and miss you, Pop.
Listen to them all day, really? I'm sure there's lots more stories. Would anyone else like to say a few words? No, we'll keep your stories for in the cup tea room. We're going to take a few moments now to look back on Darrell's life, remembering some of the special roles he played in each of your lives.
We've done us proud to come this far, down through the years to where we are, side by side, hand in hand, we've lived and died, all this great land, we've done us proud. I sailed the sea in search of freedom. I tilled the soil, all seed grow. I built fences to hold the cattle. I mined the earth in search of gold. I sheared the sheep of golden fleeces. I formed the union to win fair pay. I built a railroad to cross the country. I fought a war, all the country say.
Lee has chosen the following: a memory of me. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when my life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when my life is done. No one should be afraid of death itself. It is as natural as life itself. All that has life has a beginning and an end, and life exists in the time between. For those of us who believe that death brings the end to an individual's existence, life significance lies in the experiences and satisfactions we achieve in that span of time. Its permanence lies in the memories of those who knew us and in any influence we have left behind. Family and friends, the time has come to say a farewell to Daryl. Could you please stand? Darrell Bishop, a true, diligent, upright and proud Geelong supporter, who has left behind a legacy of kindness, love, commitment and enduring respect from all those who were privileged to have known him. To the world, Daryl was but one man, but to his family, he was the world. Today we have acknowledged our appreciation for the privilege of sharing a part of Daryl's life. May each of you find happiness and example in your memories of Daryl, Dad and Pop. Even though his death has meant a physical break in the links of the chain that binds you to each other, the influence and effect of Daryl's life is still evident now as we speak his name. And so we say, we are glad Daryl lived. We are glad we saw his face. We are glad we felt his touch and heard his laughter. We are comforted to know that he has been reunited with others gone before. We tenderly, lovingly and reverently commit Darrell Frederick Bishop's body to the purifying fire. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and his soul to remain in the hearts of those who loved him. May he rest in peace.
Yeah. won't you stay a little while? I never thought I'd see the day I had to say goodbye. Daddy, please don't go. I can't do this on my own. There's no way that I can walk this road. Daddy grabbed my hand and said, just 'cause I'm late, it don't mean I won't be right by your side when you need and you can't see me in the middle of the night. Just close your eyes and say a prayer. It's okay, boy, I ain't scared. I won't be here, but I'll always be right there. Even though I'm leaving, I ain't going nowhere.